Well, good evening again, my friends and neighbors. Whether you're right here in the hometown or whether you're across the country somewhere or maybe even internationally, we have a few of those that pop in from time to time. Um, but welcome to another edition of On the Porch with Pastor. This evening, we're going to be talking about an episode called The Day I Met Paul Harvey. Some of us remember Paul Harvey from years gone by. Once upon a time, he was a staple on radio, and he always would come on and tell us the rest of the story. But we're here tonight, and we're going to hear how Philip Gulley encountered Paul Harvey. And of course, as always, our stories come from his well-written tome, Hometown Tales, and which is, I think, itself a sequel to the original one in the series called Front Porch Tales. And so we've had a good response from these, so we're just going to keep going. So without further ado, this is called The Day I Met Paul Harvey. Denise is a member of our Quaker meeting. She has a sister named Dina who moved to Chicago and fell in love with Paul Harvey Jr., the son of the famous radio commentator. Then Dina and Paul Jr. came to visit Denise, and she brought them to church. After meeting for worship, Paul Jr. said he liked my message. A year or so later, he and Dina sent some of my stories to a man in the publishing business. And the year after that, my first book, Front Porch Tales, hit the bookstores. Paul Jr. wrote the foreword, and Mr. Harvey talked about it on his radio program. One day I was in Chicago on business with my friend Stan. I remembered Paul Jr.'s address and decided to stop in to say hello and thank him for his help. It was lunchtime, so Paul Jr. invited us to stay and eat. "We're having tuna salad sandwiches," he said. "Is that okay?" My parents had taught me to eat what was put before me, so I said tuna salad was fine. Truthfully, tuna salad is not my favorite food, but since we hadn't told him we were stopping by, I didn't feel I should be picky. Stan said, "I really don't care for tuna salad. Do you have anything else?" I wanted to slap him. Then Paul Jr. said, "We eat lunch with my mother and father, so we need to go next door." I've listened to Paul Harvey on the radio all my life. My father has listened to him for the past 40 years. Now Stan and I were walking across his yard to have lunch with him. We went to the living room to wait for Mr. Harvey. There was a Bose Wave radio on the table. Mr. Harvey's been telling us for years how wonderful they sound. Paul Jr. turned it on for me. We listened to a guy named Monty Vonnie, or something like that. He's not from these parts, so I'd never heard of him. The only Monty I knew was Monty Chadwick, who owned the Jiffy Car Wash back in my hometown of Danville. But it was pretty music. I may save up and buy one of his CDs. Then Mr. Harvey walked in the room. He looked at me and said, "Well, I'll be. Phil Gulley is standing in my living room. I can't believe it." I couldn't believe it either. I shook his hand and introduced him to Stan. "Is this the guy who doesn't like tuna salad?" he asked, pointing to Stan. "The same," I answered. Mr. Harvey asked me if I liked that Monty Vonnie fellow. I told him I didn't know. I'd never met him. Then I told him all about Monty Chadwick and the Jiffy Car Wash. If Mr. Harvey ever comes to Danville, we're going to take our cars there and get 'em washed. My treat, I told him. They've added a foaming brush that really gets the dirt off. Mr. Harvey said he's looking forward to it. We ate in the breakfast nook just off their kitchen. Stan ate chicken salad and toasted cheese. I ate my tuna salad. They put 3 of those little tomatoes on my plate, but I didn't eat them. Tomatoes make me burp, and I didn't want to do that in front of Mr. Harvey. I sat next to him and told him about the people in my little Quaker meeting. He told me how he got his start in radio. He's one of the kindest men I've ever met. After lunch, we sat around the table and visited a while. Then it was time to go. They walked us out to our car. As we drove away, Stan turned to me and said, "I can't believe we just ate lunch in Paul Harvey's kitchen." I said, "I can't believe you told them you didn't like tuna salad." He said, "I can't help it. I've been a Quaker too long. I tell the truth without even thinking about it." I told him it was obvious he wasn't thinking. As famous as Mr. Harvey is, I wasn't too nervous about meeting him. I've been around famous people before. I met Michael Landon back when he was Little Joe on Bonanza and came to Danville to give a speech on the courthouse lawn. I was 6 years old and remember being mad he didn't bring his horse. My cousin, Matt Griffith, once dated a beauty queen from Florida. She was Miss Naval Orange of 1972. He brought her to our house for a visit. She was wearing a sash and a crown topped with a gold orange. She signed a sun-kissed for me, but the next day my brother Glenn ate it for breakfast. Here's what I learned about famous people. Most of them are wonderful human beings because somewhere along the line, someone gave them a leg up and they remember that. At least the good ones do. When Paul Harvey was 14 years old, his teacher took him in hand and introduced him to the folks at the local radio station. Over half a century later, he remembers it still. None of us ever got anywhere except through the kindness of others. Sometimes we boast about being self-made, but that's just a lie we tell ourselves to feel important. We're all indebted to someone. Next time you're driving by the house of someone who's done you a good turn, knock on his door and thank him. He'll appreciate it. Who knows, you might even be offered a tuna salad sandwich. If you are, sit down and eat it. And be sure to put the napkin on your lap instead of tucking it into your shirt collar like my friend Stan did. Boy, I can't take that guy anywhere. And there's another story from On the Porch with Pastor. I always liked Paul Harvey, and some of you probably remember Paul as well. But thank you for joining us again tonight. Many of you have been commenting on these videos and letting me know what they mean to you, and I truly appreciate that. I'm glad in some small way we're able to lighten your load for the day, maybe encourage you a little bit. But it means a lot to us. Thank you so much, and we're going to keep doing these for a while. In fact, my hope is that as the weather warms up and this coronavirus mess finally passes, maybe I'll have some special guests to come and join me on the porch with Pastor. And maybe it could be you. Maybe you want to come and hang out on the porch with Pastor and enjoy story time with me. And maybe even show your mug on the internet if you're bold like some of us are. You have to get over yourself in a hurry, I guess. But friends, we love you, and we're always here for you. But better than that, so is the Lord Jesus Christ. He loves you with an everlasting love, and as our dear sister Elizabeth Elliot used to say, and underneath are the everlasting arms. But he's coming soon, so keep your eyes to the skies.